The nightmare of the orphanage is far from over as I am forced to confront those painful pasts once again. Just as I thought I had escaped those tormenting memories, an unexpected discovery forces me to face the past once more. It turns out that my strange behaviors and the abuse I suffered in my childhood may not have been coincidences, but rather the beginning of a much larger conspiracy. Chapter 43. The door opened seconds later. The orphanage director looked exactly as Lillian remembered, perhaps with more lines on his face and more grey in his hair. But he still had the same narrow, mean face with slit-haired grey eyes and thin, his arched eyebrows and pursed lips constantly etched in a scowl. Tall and broad, shouldered, Hed always looked as big as a mountain to Lillian. Memories of him, screams, insults, and beatings came to mind. It had been so long ago, yet his face still elicited the same reaction of wanting to cower in a corner. Lillian S. Wolf surged forward. Thoughts assaulted her head, of how easy it would be to shift and let her wolf take him apart. Mr. Dawson, I presume, Arthur said. The old man flitted his eyes over them. Then his eyes settled on Lillian and narrowed even further. What the hell are you doing here? His voice still had the rasp she remembered. Lillian's shoulders tensed without conscious thought, her body's usual reaction to his voice. Noah shifted beside her, and she felt an ember of anger coming to life in him. Lillian forced her lips to move. "Would like a word with you." Her voice steady and even. The old man grunted. "I have nothing to say to you. Go away." He pushed the door closed, but it was wrenched away from his grip and pulled wide open by an invisible hand. Dawson scrambled back. Arthur stepped inside, pushing the wide-eyed man in. "I think you do, mister," Dawson sputtered. He looked younger than his mid-50s. Tall, broad-shouldered with a belly that since the last time Lillian saw him. But he was not as tall nor as wide as Arthur and Noah. They all went inside, and Lillian closed the door. "Mister." Dawson took steps backwards, his eyes flickering from one man to the other. "I don't know who you people are, but you better leave before I call the police." A waver in his voice that made a sick satisfaction expand in Lillian's chest. Mr. Dawson reached inside the pocket of his worn jeans to take out his phone. The phone left his hand and shot away to slam against the wall of the living room behind him. Dawson's grey eyes widened. "Why don't you sit?" "Dawson," Arthur said. Dawson opened his mouth. Arthur shook his head. "That Worcester requests it." Dawson's throat bobbed. He folded his big frame in the worn black leather couch, his knee bumping against the low glass table in front of it. Lillian glanced around. The living room was something she expected of a bachelor's pad, bare except for the couch, the coffee table and the grey carpet underneath. A couple of generic pictures hung on the wall. A TV stood on a black stand. Bottles of beer filled the coffee table, and the smell of dust, alcohol and cigarette smoke hung heavy in the air, itching Lillian's nose. Noah strolled through the living room, his pace leisurely. Arthur and Elle leaned against the wall, Dawson's eyes fixed on Lillian, and a sneer came over his features. "I always knew you were a freak. I guess you found your kind." "What does that mean?" Noah asked. Dawson jumped. Noah was directly behind him, the wolf pushing forward in his amber eyes. Dawson's body was so stiff Lillian had the absurd thought that if she touched him, he would shatter. She didn't mind thought too much. "It means what it means," Dawson said. "Why are you here? Why don't you start by answering the question?" Noah said, a distinctive growl in his voice. He put a clawed hand on Dawson's shoulder. Dawson's heartbeat spiked. The scent of his fear smelled so sweet to Lillian's nose. "She was a weird kid," Dawson said. "Did things no normal child should do." Lillian frowned. She had no clue what he was talking about. "Elaborate," Noah said, retrieving his hand. Dawson's shoulders relaxed a fraction as Noah moved around him to stand next to Lillian. "She kept crawling until she turned 5, Dawson said, even though she knew how to walk. "She licked things and... Don't some children do all sorts of weird things?" Arthur asked in low voice. "Sure they do, but they grow out of it," Dawson said, glaring at Lillian. "She never did. We had trouble with her. She sniffed people and bit the nurses she didn't like. A piece of work. She was, right until we beat it out of her. Nose growl shook the TV and knocked a few empty beers off the table. Dawson's panicked eyes fixed on him. I don't remember any of it, Lillian said, putting her hand on Nose forearm. Well, except the beatings. A meld of anger and thirst for violence hit Lillian. It was tears. She was getting used to sensing Nose's emotions. The bond grew stronger by the hour and she could almost sense its presence in her mind's eye. The things Dawson was describing. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It was as if she'd, in a wolf pup, but she had always been a human. She never had a sense of a wolf as she did now. She had been decidedly human. She remembered the director taking her to his office. She remembered the whistle of the rod through the air, the pain on the back of her feet, on her behind, on her arms, but she never remembered any reason for the beatings. Her wolf wanted to tear out of her skin and show him exactly what it felt like to be under the mercy of someone bigger and stronger. And Lillian was inclined to do just that. Was she turning into a monster? She looked at the cold eyes of the director now. If anyone here was a monster, it was him. Lillian glared at him and crossed her arms. Is that why you hated me? He snorted. Hated you? Don't give yourself too much credit. Girl, you were a nuisance I tried to keep in check. Nothing more. Nothing less. Her entire childhood had been shaped by the behavior of this man towards her. Even after the beatings stopped, he never failed to show his dislike for her. She had been a bright kid in school, but she remembered the sense of suffocation she felt whenever she got back to the orphanage, the cowering whenever the director walked by. She lost even that safe haven of school once she entered high school where the bullying started. The cowering and the fear bled to outside the orphanage then. How could he fail to see the effect his behavior had on a child? Lillian could never imagine beating a kid that way, until they bled and ached for days after. She could have never lived with herself knowing she inspired fear in the heart of an innocent child simply by walking by. Lillian shook away the memories. What do you know about my past? How did I get to the orphanage? Hospital delivered you with your papers. They found you nearby. Someone dumped you there. Police got no leads. Our job is to take the likes of you in. So we did. Do you even care? Lillian asked, genuinely curious. Do you ever regret the way you acted? He shrugged a big shoulder. A firm hand never hurt anyone. Angry in a way she'd never been before. Lillian laughed humorously. That was more than a firm hand, and you know it. She stepped forward, pushing the coffee table aside with her foot. She misjudged her strength and the table crashed against the wall, the glass shattering in a tinkling sound. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Oh well. Dawson's eyes widened as Lillian kept walking. She leaned forward until her face was inches from his. A prey caught by a predator. The flicker of panic she felt. Remnants of her childhood and teenage years sizzled out of existence. And all she saw was a mean, bitter old man. Do you still work in the orphanage? Yes, he rasped out. Quit. And don't ever go near a child again. Do you hear me? His breathing quickened, but he glared at her. You can't tell me to quit. You have no. Lillian put her hand around his throat and squeezed, feeling the skin and muscle give beneath her grip. It would be so easy to crush his throat. This is a warning. Dawson, quit the orphanage, or I will come to find you. And you'll make the beatings you gave me look like child's play. Do you understand? He drew in a wheezing breath. You can't. I'll call the police. Lillian snarled, giving way to her wolf as much as she could without shifting to fur. Her gums ached as her canines lengthened. Fur pricked the back of her neck and arms, and her nails turned to claws, pricking Dawson's skin and drawing blood. The smell of his fear and blood was intoxicating. Lillian kept her wolf from shifting by sheer power of will. Do you understand? The words garbled through her lips. Yes, he whispered. The word barely heard. Lillian let go and stepped away from his cloying scent. Done? Noah asked, his eyes set on Dawson. Yes, let's go. A cheer's not worth it. Pulling on Noah's arm, she had a feeling if she left them alone, Dawson would be missing a limb or two. Noah complied after a few seconds. They walked away. When they reached the door, Lillian looked over her shoulder. Dawson was frozen in his seat, his face pale. Something was right on top of his head and embedded itself on the wall. A dagger. Elle winked at Dawson. Just a little reminder to keep your promise. They drove away from the house. Can we make a detour? Lillian asked. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Guide the way, Arthur said. She navigated him through town until they reached a sprawling, red brick building. High school, Elle asked, peering through the window at the building and the expanse of grass around it. Yes. Lillian stepped out and stood on the sidewalk. It was a Sunday. The building was deserted. So many memories nipped at Lillian's throat. So many horrible moments she had carried with her for years. She looked at the windows, the closed door, the empty parking lot. It was just a building. She associated so much pain with it. But it was just a building. The true culprits were the people. She remembered the faces of those who were the cruelest. Would they remember her now? If she stood before them, would they remember her 10 years from now? 20 years. For some of them, picking on her could have been just a prank to have some fun. The insult just a word forgotten soon after they uttered it. Lillian would be a distant memory some wouldn't even recall. But for her, every prank, every insult had been a push toward a dark hole. Lillian had survived, but so many others hadn't. So many others wouldn't. The bullies might not remember the faces of their victims after some time, but the bully carried the scars in their hearts for the rest of their lives. It cost nothing to be kind, but it had a great effect. Who knows? Maybe the kindness you give off handedly could be the reason to pull someone from the darkness. A kind word, a kind gesture, could be the line that keeps someone tethered to life when a mean word would have thrown them under. Push them one step closer to giving up. And a high school. Elle whistled. The rest of them had stepped out and were looking at the school with her. I was a scholarship student, Lillian said. You can guess how that went down. Isn't that supposed to be a good thing? Arthur asked, looking up and down the building, spoken like someone who never went to high school. Elle said, maybe it's supposed to be good, Lillian said, but it also made me different. Noah slipped his arm around her waist and pulled her close. Lillian leaned against him. What do you guys think about what the director said? Lillian asked. Could I have been a wolf? Arthur shook his head. I doubt it. Perhaps there is werewolf blood in you, but you wouldn't have been a full-fledged wolf. However, that doesn't mean you were a normal human. Lillian frowned. The twins have been human for the first 2 years of their lives. 2. It was only after they shifted that I felt they were immortals. Perhaps you were the same. Perhaps not, Arthur said. The wolf blood must have materialized in things, such as your behaviors or instincts. But a child's mind is very flexible. The director's behavior might have made your brain bury those instincts deep inside in order to protect you. Everything we have at this point is pure speculation. Noah said. We need more. Lillian said. The seer said to look in your past. Lillian. Elle said. Any other ideas? Lillian frowned. There was another place. The place I lived in with the twins before coming to the pack. I stayed there after giving birth to the twins with Lydia. Although I don't know what good that will do, I don't think we'll find any clues there about my past. Might as well go there since we're already out of the pack. Elle said. Lillian glanced at Noah. What about the police and everything? I'm still wanted for Lydia's murder. Right. What if someone recognizes me there? Noah squeezed her waist. So what if they recognize you? Well, won't they try to arrest me? Noah chuckled. Oh, please. Let them try. Lillian growled. The sound coming so naturally to her, "I'm serious. Noah." He leaned his head until his nose was inches from mine. "So am I. No one is taking you anywhere." She pursed her lips. He kissed her and straightened. "Let's go." They made a detour in a drive-through to pick up lunch. Because Lydia and Ness's stomach released a loud symphony that put nose growls to shame. Lydia ate like her life depended on it. She didn't feel alone since Noah and Dell also devoured burgers and fries. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The driver was the only one who didn't order. Lydia thought it was because being a vampire, he couldn't digest big amounts of food. But Elle split her burger in two. She ate half of it and the other half floated in front of Arthur's mouth, and he took bites while driving. The sight made Lillian snortle laugh. Arthur glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Am I amusing?" "Lillian." She swallowed her laughter, glancing at Noah nervously. "Just joking." "Lillian," Elle said, punching her mate on the arm. "You should smile if you want others to know you're teasing. It takes away from the fun." "My love," Arthur said. Lillian grinned as the two bickered back and forth. It took her mind off what she'd soon be facing. Lydia. The thought of going back twisted her stomach up in knots. They would probably find nothing, and she wanted to just go back to the pack instead of going there and opening old wounds. But like Elle said, the seer said the answer was in her past, so they had to dot their E's and cross their T. The trip was shorter than she expected, probably because Arthur drove the car to its highest speed, zipping past cars on the highway. Her werewolf eye saw everything pass as if in slow motion, and she understood that Arthur's reflexes must be doing the same for him. At one point, a police car followed them, siren flashing. Arthur glanced at the rearview mirror and continued on his way, outspeeding the police vehicle. "Well, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." He slowed the car once they were out of the highway. The town looked just as Lillian remembered it, which was to be expected since it'd only been a few months since she. Sometimes it felt like years. Lillian navigated them through town toward Lydia's house. People strolled around, and the roads were slightly busy this late in the afternoon. Lydia's heart beat faster as the car rolled to a stop in front of Lydia's house. "It's probably not a good idea to park here," Lillian said, glancing at the neighbors' homes. "Someone might report us, well, me." "Don't worry," Arthur said, looking up and down the quiet street. "I have a good team of lawyers." Lillian sighed, deciding to trust them, and led the way to the front door. The familiar house brought a pang to Lillian's heart. One of the windows was broken, and the front yard was overgrown with weed. She looked at the locked door, wondering how they'd break in. Noah gently pushed her aside. He gripped the doorknob. Veins pulsed in his hand and forearm. A second later, he pushed the door open, breaking the entire lock with it. That was one way to do it. They went inside. Lillian stopped, looking at the stain on the floor. Memories of that cursed night rushed to her mind. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Flashes of lightning. Lydia's prone body on the floor. Blood. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Her wolf forward, reacting to the mess of her emotions. She took a deep breath and shoved everything but the present aside. The house smelled of dust, mold, the sharp tang of bleach, and a hint of old blood. She was aware of the others looking around as she took slow steps inside. The place was cleared of furniture. Lillian looked at the kitchen. Nothing. Everything was gone. Every last trace of their lives here was gone. As if they never were. As if Lillian ever was. Noah was pushing the door of the twins' room open. Empty. Looking inside. The twins' room. Lillian nodded and walked deeper into the house. She drew in deep breaths, using her nose as Noah liked to remind her every so often. She didn't know what she was looking for, She didn't even know if there was something to find. Elle and Arthur looked through cupboards and drawers in the kitchen. Something tugged Lily into the backyard. She followed her instinct, pushing the French doors open. The backyard of Lydia S. house was surrounded by a wooden fence, beyond which was an old park with thick trees and grown vegetation. That was where the twins had hid the night the humans came for them. The fence was broken now, the gate and parts of the fence missing, and the grass in the backyard was edged with bushes and weeds. The only tree in the backyard, an old oak under which Lydia and the twins often hung out, reached for the sky, immovable and unchangeable. Lillian stepped off the porch and looked around the abandoned backyard. The twins' toys were nowhere to be seen, disappearing with everything else. Lillian wondered who had taken the furniture and everything else. She supposed Lydia's next of kin would inherit everything, though Lydia never spoke of any close family members. She went back inside. Noah had shifted into his wolf and was sniffing the floor of the living room. Something? Lillian asked. He shook his head no. I only smell humans over the old hints of your scent and the twins. But there's something. Lillian frowned and looked around. Something itched at her. Noah went into Lillian's old room. She glanced over her shoulder at the backyard, but before she could retrace her steps, Noah growled. The three were in the room in a glance. Noah's nose was pressed to the dusty floor next to the closet. What is it? Elle asked. I smell a vampire. He linked Lillian. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But it's here. A vampire. Lillian told the others. She frowned. Do you recognize the scent? Arthur asked. Going to crouch next to the black wolf. Noah shook his head and, his nose still stuck to the ground, tracked the scent all over the room and then outside. They must have been here before the police cleared everything. Noah said, I don't smell them in the living room since it was cleaned because of the blood. Lillian relayed Noah's words to the couple. Why don't you check the other rooms? Arthur said, straightening up. Lillian, is there any reason a vampire would have been here? Lillian shook her head immediately no. I don't think I ever saw a vampire in town, and Lydia didn't have any ties to vampires. As far as I know. Lillian frowned, remembering Lydia's guns and the way the old lady had handled them with such familiarity. Lillian never told Lillian exactly what she used to do before retiring, and Lillian never pressed the issue. Noah emerged from the twins' room. He was annoyed and frustrated. Lillian could feel it. More vampires and a witch. Noah linked, his wolf's lips twitching in a snarl. Lillian relayed the words again. Elle sighed. Maybe they were looking for something. Now that we know Lillian might be been involved in Bloss experiments. But what? Lillian asked. I didn't have anything of interest. Arthur rubbed his jaw. Perhaps it is not you. He mumbled. What is the name of the woman you used to live with? Lydia Harrison. Lillian said. Arthur pulled out his phone and typed something. What did she do? Arthur asked. I don't know exactly. Lillian said. All I know is that she used to work for the government before retiring. Suddenly restless, Lillian went into her old room, shed her clothes and shifted into her wolf. The flash of pain mixed with the relief of letting her wolf out again. Following Noah's footsteps, she pressed her nose to the floor, sneezing twice at the dust and the assault of old and new scents. Elle chuckled, patting Lillian's head. Lillian shook her head and pushed her nose to the floor again. The living room smelled vaguely of bleach, stubborn hints of old blood and humans, and the twin scent that clung to the walls and was too embedded to disappear. But once she got to the rooms, her nose picked up traces of immortal scent. Barely there. Noah was right. She met him near the French doors to the backyard. The opened doors let in a pleasant afternoon breeze. Lillian went back to the backyard, letting her wolf scan the overgrown space. Noah's wolf pressed his length to hers. He was much bigger than her even in wolf form. He gave her neck a lick. Lillian's wolf growled, echoing Lillian's mood. Not now. She linked, giving him a long look. The wolf grinned, and Lillian felt No's amusement as if it was her own. Later, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She rolled her eyes and stepped out to the back porch, but not before swishing her tail and making sure it hit his nose. He growled playfully, "Maybe later." Lily unlinked him. "If you're lucky, I'll remind you of this." He shot back, his voice light. She stepped off the porch and followed her instincts, her mind running. Immortals had been in their house, looking for something. Lillian had nothing they might be interested in, so that left Lydia. Per Arthur's assumption, what would Lydia have to do with immortals? Lillian didn't have the slightest clue. The idea was very far-fetched, but something about it rang true to her instinct. Supposing it was true, that Lydia did, indeed, have something those immortals wanted. Supposing Lydia hid such a thing, where would she hide it? Lillian glanced back at the house. The rooms were empty. There was nowhere to search, except if there was a false floorboard or something like that. But she kept coming back to the backyard. Lydia loved the old oak in the backyard. She used to spend a lot of time there with the twins. They used to have picnics under its shade in spring and summer. Sometimes Lillian would come home to find Lydia reading to the twins while they lay on her lap. So many fond memories. She only lived with Lydia for 5 years, but they were the best 5 years of her life up to that point. Noah sniffed the back porch and the steps. Lillian went straight to the old oak tree. She circled it once and glanced up. The sun peeked through the branches and leaves. Lillian pressed her nose to its bark and the dirt around it. Nothing. She glanced up when Arthur stepped out into the backyard, phone in hand. "I think you want to hear this. Lillian. Your friend Lydia Harrison was an interesting woman." Chapter 44. Lydia worked for the government. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Arthur said, looking at his phone with a cold smile. She was a CIA agent. Lillian's head snapped up, her wolf's ears twitching. A CIA agent. Lillian had known Lydia's occupation wouldn't be something as mundane as a clerk. But a CIA agent. She cocked her head at Arthur. He scrolled through his phone. His eyes narrowed. After she presumably retired, she worked as a treasure hunter. A treasure hunter? Elle asked, stepping out of the house to stand next to her mate. That's good for rogue hunting, Arthur said, glancing at Noah and Lillian. Human government agencies have been going after rogue immortals for as long as I can remember. Why, Elle asked, her hand on her sword. I thought only the Order had the authority to hunt down rogues, yes. Treasure hunting is illegal, but humans never care for following laws that aren't beneficial to them. They want immortals to study and experiment on in order to find out more about us. And rogues, especially weak ones, are often convenient target. No one misses them. No one will start asking around about some rogues if they're not causing trouble. Lillian whined and shook her head. The thought that Lydia was responsible for such things made her heart ache. Noah made a noise at the back of his throat and stepped close to her, his side brushing hers. Arthur looked at Lillian. This information is certain. Lydia Harrison worked as a treasure hunter after retiring as a CIA agent. But this is where it gets interesting. 5 years ago, she went under the radar. 5 years ago. That was around the time she came into Lillian's life. Lillian's blood ran cold. Our guess is that she was tasked with some sort of mission, he continued. Probably something that ran long-term and required she go off the radar. Elle pursed her lips and looked at Lillian. Do you think she knew about you when she approached you? Lillian sat down under the shade of the big oak. Had Lydia known about Lillian? Was that why she approached her? But it didn't make sense. Lydia had never done anything to hurt Lillian or the twins. She had protected them until her dying breath. Maybe it was all a big coincidence. But even as she thought that, she knew it was unlikely. Lillian's wolf dug her claws in the ground. She didn't like this. She didn't like this at all. A treasure hunter. Elle mumbled. I never knew such a thing existed. Treasure hunter. Lillian cocked her head to the side. A memory nipped at the edges of her mind. Just out of reach. She looked at the ground, trying to pull on the skein of that thought. Treasure hunting. It popped in her head, suddenly clear as day. The memory of coming back from work to find the twins covered in dirt, and Lydia coming in from the backyard with a small shovel. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. We buried a treasure under the tree. Elida's excited voice announced. Lydia had laughed and shaken her head at the twins. It was supposed to be a secret. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Her smile deepening the lines on her kind face. Oh, sorry. Elijah's wide eyes. But you always tell us not to keep secrets from Mommy, Ezra said, looking at Lydia with big blue eyes. I do, don't I? Lydia had patted the twins' head. Well, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I guess your Mommy can know this secret. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Lillian Aswolf started digging where she stood. She had thought the twins and Lydia were simply playing, that they had buried something silly like a toy or a bone. It could still be nothing, but her instinct said otherwise. Lillian, what is it? Noah asked, his big black wolf coming to stand by her. The twins and Lydia buried something under the tree once. Lillian replied, her claws digging through the rough ground. Without a word, Noah picked his pot a few feet away from her and put his claws to use. Arthur and Elle understood and joined them. Lillian dug, wondering how deep she'd have to go before changing the spot. It was Elle who found it. Something here, she called from around the tree. Noah and Lillian were beside them in a second. Elle's nails were sharp claws encrusted with dirt. She pushed the soil away, wiping the surface of what looked like a metallic box, but they cowled and edged out. It was bigger than the hole Elle had dug. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My love, Arthur said. Elle sat back. Lillian felt a sniff of what she realized was Arthur's magic. Dark and impossibly strong. The box shook and wiggled out of its spot, lifting with it dirt and grass. Arthur put the box on the ground and rapped his knuckles on its top. It was around 40 inches in length and half as wide. A thick metallic lock sealed the lid to the box. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Elle rattled the lock. Arthur closed his fist around the lock and put his other hand on the box, holding it in place. He pulled on the lock and it came apart with a groaning noise. The lid sprang open. It's not anymore, Arthur said, throwing the lock aside. Right. Note to self, lock stop immortals. Show off. Elle muttered. They all peered inside the box. A red toy trots at atop a stack of documents, next to a USB key and a worn-out notebook. Arthur picked up the notebook and ruffled through it, his brows raised. Well, I guess we found what the immortals were looking for. Noah put his hand on Lillian's shoulder. They'd gone back into the house, shifted to their skin and dressed before joining Elle and Arthur under the old oak. Noah could feel Lillian's shock. She sat on the ground, leaning against the tree, the red toy truck held tightly in her hands. He was next to her, the files they defished out of the box scattered around them. Are you okay? What a stupid question. Of course she was okay. What they found in the box made it clear that Lydia had known Lillian was not a normal human, that she was a result of Blasius experiments. Lillian just shrugged, her eyes following the movements of Elle and Arthur, though she didn't seem like she was seeing any of it. This is interesting, Arthur said, flipping through the small notebook as Elle pocketed the USB key and handed Noah another file. Most of the documents they'd found so far were records of names and locations. Some were detailed accounts of the missions she'd been involved in while working for the treasure hunters. Everything from the races of immortals she'd helped hunt down, the names of the team members she worked with, her supervisors, dates and locations. She was very thorough. With what we have here, Arthur said, we might be able to incriminate many people. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Who was still looking through the small notebook, suddenly chuckled. It appears Mrs. Harrison was a double agent. I told you before she went underground 5 years ago. We were right. It was because of a mission. She had to infiltrate a group of people who were leading experiments on humans. Guess who was the leader of that group? Blas Ayas. No, and Elle guessed as one. Yes, Arthur waved the notebook in his hand. This is an account of the details of the mission. It seemed this was to be her last mission before retiring for good. Was that why she approached me? Lillian asked, her eyes coming back to life. Was it on purpose? Yes, Arthur replied without hesitation. Lillian raised her knees and wrapped her arms around them. The disbelief was slowly replaced by sadness. Noah sighed and threw the file in his hand on top of its brethren. It seemed like the world just wouldn't give her a break. According to what she knew, Arthur continued, reading the notes. Her agency caught Senator Brady in a covert meeting with a witch. The name sounded vaguely familiar to Noah. Lillian frowned. Isn't that the senator who's famous for being a supporter of the Pure Human Association? Yes, Arthur said, giving Lillian a look. Interested in politics? No, but having 2 immortal babies made me follow any news of immortals in the media. It seems Senator Brady is a two-faced bastard. According to your friend, Arthur said. The treasure hunters agency Lydia worked for threatened him with exposure if he didn't work with them, so he revealed what he knew to the agency. Blas Ayas had approached him more than 20 years earlier when he was still a lowly, dirt-poor government official. He had to acquire resources and secure locations that Blas Ayas would need for his experiments. Machines and other things that humans manufacture. Why not get them himself? Elle asked. I assume Blas Ayas has the money for it. It's not about the money. It's about traceability, Arthur replied. Blas Ayas knows that immortals are closely watched. If he suddenly starts buying weird stuff from human companies, news will get out. Okay, so he acquired whatever Blas Ayas needed for him, Noah said. In exchange for what? For help in his political career, Arthur said. Flipping to the next page, he narrowed his eyes. It makes sense. Brady has been unusually lucky in his career despite the many scandals he was involved in. What does that mean? Lillian asked. What kind of help would they offer him? Anything from mental manipulation to destroying his rivals. Arthur shrugged. Immortals are gifted in different ways, and humans are very prone to our magic. What a sleazy asshole. Elle nundled. Archie has been outwardly supporting the Pure Human Association when Archie is the first person to benefit from immortals. So what happened after the treasure hunters agency caught Brady in bed with immortals? Noah asked. They made him help them in their cause. Arthur replied. The chance presented itself when Blas Ayas required a few humans in order to keep an eye on certain test subjects. Around 5 years ago. Lillian sucked in a sharp breath. My guess that would be you. Lillian, Arthur said. He flipped through the pages. Your friend mentioned meeting members of Blas Ayas groups several times. They briefed her on the mission. Arthur closed his mouth with a snap. And Noah felt a chill run down his spine. The darkness in Arthur swirled and wheezed. A dangerous monster. What is it? Lillian asked. Noah was glad to see her getting out of the black hole of shock and sadness. But Arthur's next words made him wish he could get hands on Blas Ayas right then and there. Blas Ayas was the one who arranged everything, Arthur said, including getting the test subjects pregnant. What does that mean? Elle said. Lillian stopped breathing, her eyes turning amber. Elle plucked the notebook from Arthur's hands and read through it. Her eyes squinted. Arthur looked at Noah. She doesn't know the details of it or why he had ordered it, but he did. Arthur continued. Apparently, it happened to several other women as well. She refers to them as test subjects, so they're most likely part of Blasius' experiment. Eswed assumed. They're more like me, Lillian asked, a growl in her voice. That bastard. No's own anger turned into a cold fire. His jaw clenched to a breaking point. Lillian suddenly stood up and started pacing back and forth. The afternoon sun had begun to sink low in the horizon, and a cool wind blew, ruffling her hair, so Lydia knew all about it even before I told her. She knew about everything. Her mission was to keep an eye on you and report anything odd, including immortal, like behaviors in you or your offspring. So she approached me on purpose. Lillian whispered, closing her eyes tightly, but she didn't report the changes to them. Elle said, waving the notebook. It might have begun as a mission to her, but she didn't report the twins shifting to them. She protected you. Lillian stopped and crossed her arms. I don't know what I should believe anymore. Elle stood and handed her the notebook. You should read this before coming to any conclusions. It sounds like she was truly fond of you three. Lillian held the notebook and stared at its plain grey cover as if it held the answers to her questions. No's ears pricked. He jumped to his feet. The sound of a car parking in the driveway. We have company. Noah went to the door while the others stuffed everything back into the box. A human. Noah opened the door. A man stood on the other side, his hand raised to the doorbell, blonde with tan skin and curly blonde hair. His blue eyes widened in surprise. Who are you? Taking a small step back, Ted. Lillian asked behind Noah. Elle and Arthur were out of sight. You know him? Noah asked in a mind link. Yes, he was a regular in the diner where I used to work. You're back, Ted said, his eyes flickering to Noah. Just for the afternoon, Lillian said, standing closer to Noah. How did you know? He pointed over his shoulder with a small smile. I was driving by and saw a car in the driveway. Oh, Lillian nodded. She paused, a frown tugging down her brows. I never knew you know where I live. Something flickered in his eyes. Too fast for Noah to read, but it tugged on his wolf's wariness. Noah took a small step forward. Ted glanced at him and smiled. It's a small town, and after what happened, well, the neighborhood kind of got famous. Lillian said. She switched to mind link and asked him, what's wrong? I don't know. I just don't like him, he replied. Well, he'd like to stay and chat, but we have to go, Lillian said with a blazing smile. It was good seeing you again. You didn't bring the kid. Lillian's shoulders tensed. Intense protectiveness and anger flared through the bond, matching No's own. He fixed the human with his gaze, feeling the wolf look through his eyes now. I didn't bring the kids, Lillian said, her voice suddenly cold. I think you should go now. Ted's eyes snapped to No's. They widened and he stumbled back with a nervous chuckle. Right. Sure. I'll see you around. He basically ran to his car. Just as he was backing out of the driveway, two police cars came racing down the street and parked right in front of the house. A coincidence. Noah cursed. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Lillian said, I think you might want to call your lawyers right now. Nonsense. My dear, Arthur said, appearing with Elle. We'll handle them ourselves. They went down the steps right as the police cars opened and 4 officers stepped out. Guns blazing. Hands over your heads, one of them said, his finger on the trigger. Lillian froze. I would drop those guns if I were you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Arthur said, without breaking his stride. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My love, go to the car. I said freeze. The officer said. The scent of their fear permeated the air. Noah urged her forward. Go with Elle, baby. Elle grumbled something under her breath and pulled Lillian with her to the car. Stop right there, one of the officers said when Arthur kept walking towards them. Noah rounded the car and stood between it and the police officers. He was aware of the neighbors peeking through their windows. Their muted voices reached his ears. Someone shot. A bullet hovered right in front of Arthur's chest. The officer choked. Arthur looked at the bullet, sighed and flicked his hand aside, throwing the bullet to the ground. Hey, isn't that Arthur? One of the officers whispered to his friend next to him. Yes. The one and only, Arthur said, stopping next to Noah. I said to lower those guns. The officer at the lead raised his gun a little higher. It was trembling. Noah had to admire his bravery, though it towed the line toward recklessness when one pointed a gun at an immortal. Especially Arthur. Arthur or not. We received a tip that Lillian Miller is here, the officer said. We're here to take her into custody. She's charged with murder. It's human business. Lillian Miller is a member of my pack. Noah said. You have no authority over her. The officers exchanged looks. She's human. She's under. I'm afraid that isn't strictly true, Arthur said. Lillian Miller is a werewolf. So, officers, what will it be? Will you let us drive away without further disruption? Or will we have to take things into our own hands? I must say, it has been a boring day so far. I would prefer you take the second option. The officer at the lead pursed his lips. His eyes went to the car behind Noah. Noah growled loudly. The officer jumped. Whoever sent you here isn't going to take responsibility for your broken bones. Noah said. Lower your guns, the officer said after a beat of silence. Yet his own gun was still raised and pointed at Arthur. Stubborn human, Arthur mumbled. A wisp of his magic, and the barrel of the officer's gun twisted upward with a metallic whine. The officers stared at the misshaped gun. Next time, it will not be your gun, Arthur said. Would I give an order? I expect it to be obeyed. Understood. The officer nodded jerkily. It seemed like the motion was ripped out of him. Have a good day. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, Arthur said. Then he and Noah walked to the car. Arthur slowly steered the car out of the neighborhood, as if he was driving around for pleasure. Noah glanced at the rearview mirror. The police officers were still frozen in place, and some of the neighbors got out of their houses. Next time, I want to be in on the fun. Your lordship, Elle said from the back seat, the metallic box between her and Lillian. Let's hope there isn't a next time, Lillian said, looking over her shoulder. Elle deepened her voice, imitating Arthur's. Noah supposed. Would I give an order? I expect it to be obeyed. Understood. Very badass. Noah's lips twitched up. Arthur raised a brow and looked at his mate in the mirror. You need about 2 feet of height before you can imitate me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Elle glowered and sent a flicker of a blue flame towards Arthur. The spark of blue nipped his ear before dying out. When the car turned and the house disappeared, Lillian faced forward again. Her eyes were glowing amber. All the emotions and the stress was getting to her. So soon after her shift, Noah would have expected her wolf to burst out of her skin several times over the past few hours. Her control was truly astounding, and if Dawson's words were true and Lillian had acted as a wolf would when she was younger, then it was no wonder she adjusted quickly to the changes in her. Perhaps she was always meant to be a wolf. His mind went back to their recent findings. They had more leads now. We should pay Senator Brady a visit, Noah said. Yes, we should tug on that thread. It might lead us to intriguing places. Where do we find him? Elle asked. Won't he be in Washington, D.C., Lillian said. She opened the box and fished out the notebook. Beneath the jumble of emotions, Noah sensed determination in her. Good. Arthur drove the car out of the small town. The sun was slowly falling below the horizon. The sky changed from the ruddy shades of sunset to the dark colors of dusk. "My love, will you call Harvey? Please," Arthur said. "Since you said please," Elle said, a smile in her voice. She called the vampire into the phone toward Arthur. It hovered next to his ear. "You'll never get used to that," Lydian mumbled. "Find out where Senator Brady is?" A second. Harvey's voice sounded from the other side of the line. After a few moments, he came back. "Achius in Washington, D.C. Do you want me to have someone on him?" "Yes," Arthur said. "I want them to sit on him until we get there." "Do I even want to know?" Harvey asked. "You will. Just make sure Achius secured. I don't want him reaching out to anyone, and I don't want anyone to get to him before we do. And watch his communication channels." "Yes, your lordship," Harvey said. "Any further commands?" "Your lordship." "No," Arthur said, flying the phone back to Elle, who cut the line. "The disrespect I deal with," Arthur said. "They all had some sense of self-preservation before you came along." Elle poked her head between them and grinned. "Shut up. I have a gentling effect on your people." "Gentling effect?" "My ass," Arthur said. Elle pointed at him. "And on your vocabulary." Noah met Liddy and Ness' eyes in the rearview mirror. Her grin was infectious. "Do you keep tabs on all politicians?" Noah asked Arthur. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm," Arthur said. "All people of interest in politics and business are watched." "And immortals?" Noah asked. Arthur smiled a little. "Immortals are more elusive, but I do my best." Noah hummed. Arthur was once Kerry Bastard. Harvey had said before that Arthur valued information above all else. He guessed it was true. "Do you need to get back to your pack?" Arthur asked. Noah looked back at Lillian. She shook her head, her face set in determined lines. "No," Noah said. "Let's go now. The sooner we get this over with, the better, especially after they found the box. Whoever had searched Lydia's house must have known she had something hidden there. Lillian must be thinking along the same lines, because she put her hand on the box and asked, how did those immortals know Lydia was hiding this? Maybe she let something slip during her interaction with people of the agency. Elle said, or maybe after they found out that the twins were actually immortal, they knew she had abandoned the mission. If they suspected she had turned on them, then they would suspect she kept a fail-safe in order to expose them. Or maybe she threatened them with exposure if they didn't leave you alone, Noah suggested. At this point, it was all speculation. Lydia was dead. No one would ever know her true motivations. But the fact that she kept records of all this, the fact that the twins knew about it, made Noah believe she had been trying to protect Lillian and the twins. What mattered was that they knew Lydia was hiding something dangerous to them, so they would all have had the house watched in case someone, namely Lillian, showed up. Noah's mind flickered to the human, Ted. But even if he was just a normal human with no link to this mess, the police might have reported their presence. They needed to act now and get a hold of Brady before anyone else got to him first. An hour later, they were thousands of feet up in the air in Arthur's private jet. Lillian had raised her brows when they had boarded the fancy airplane. Archie's stinking rich, Elle had said in a conspiratorial whisper. That's why I put up with him. Otherwise I would have ditched him months ago. Lillian had laughed, and even Arthur chuckled. Noah shook his head with a smile. It was particularly funny because Elle was the last person who cared about wealth. The cream-colored seats were comfortable. The neutral colors, the plush seats and the polished wooden tables screamed luxury. They all took their seats in a four-seater around a table where a laptop waited for them. Once they were in the air, Elle took out the flash drive from her pocket and stuck it in the laptop. I wonder what's in it, Lydian asked, setting aside the notebook. Elle frowned, typing on the laptop. I have no idea what this is. Arthur looked over Elle's shoulder. It's some kind of encrypted program. We should get someone to have a look at it. Elle pulled out a phone from her pocket. I know someone who might help. A human? Noah asked. Yes, I've hired him a few times back when I was still, well, human. Her lips twisted into a sardonic smile as she added, right now, Aegeus the only one from my previous contacts who's taking my calls. Being outed as an immortal sure has a way of turning old friends into strangers. Her voice was light-hearted, but Noah wondered how much it truly bothered her. If Aegeus not up for it, we have people who can look at it, Arthur said. Aegeus faster, Elle said, switching to the laptop. After a few minutes. Interesting. Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Arthur said, I told you. Aegeus fast. What did he find? Lillian asked. What does the program do? It will release a bunch of files online and send them to several destinations if Lydia didn't check in once a year. What files? Lydia, leaning forward. Elle typed something and waited a few seconds. She gave a humorless laugh. Everything we found in the box. Everything Lydia knows about Bla's IS experiments. The agency. The identities of the test subjects. Everything would go public. Lillian sucked in a sharp breath. That would put the women in danger. And their children. If they have them. Not necessarily, Elle said, glancing up. Arthur's office was also among the destinations of the files. It's no secret that Arthur would protect the immortals. Lydia knew that outing them as potential immortals would put them under Arthur's protection and keep them safe from the humans experimenting. Arthur said, tell your friend to make a list of all the women. He already did, Elle said, turning the screen to face Arthur. He organized all the files by type and sent them to me. Arthur narrowed his eyes. Is your friend available for hire? Hiring a human? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Elle said, her smile impish. How very progressive of you. You can gloat later. My love, Arthur said, taking the laptop from her. Oh, I intend to. Elle said, what are you going to do with the women? Noah asked. Well, put them under watch. He scanned the laptop screen. According to what we have here, some of them have children, but they're all humans. It doesn't mean anything, Noah said. The twins were humans until they shifted, yes. I was always able to tell if a person is immortal or human, and the twins have been human since the moment they were born until the day they shifted. Lillian added, we should keep an eye on them. Then, Arthur said, I'll tell Elle's friend to disable the program. Lillian crossed her arms and scooted closer to Noah. Do you think Lydia knew she would be targeted? She asked him via mind link. Maybe. She must have set it as a failsafe in case she did. Noah replied. She knew the people might come after her if they knew about the twins. Doing this made sure the knowledge didn't die with her. That it reached the right ears. I feel like she betrayed me. Her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Why didn't she tell me? Noah raised the armrest between them and wrapped his arm around Lillian. Maybe she was ashamed of what she'd done. She didn't betray you, Lillian. She protected you. I know, Lillian said, looking out the window, but it doesn't feel good. All the same,